Hello and welcome to the very first Dinosaur of 2024. Another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. As ever, let's crack on. First one is FlowPilot. This is a retrofit to your car, or at least one of 250 models of car. Ours is on there, which is very exciting. I'm going to give this a go. But what does it do? If you've got an Android phone, some cables and the software, which is open source, then it will give your car, depending on the model, different versions, different levels of autopilot skills. So it might give it lane control, lane exit. It might also give you collision detection, those sorts of skills. As I say, it's open source. Would you try this? If you do, please let me know. I'm interested how it goes, but available on the website down below. The big news in the media world really in January is the copyright issue, or at least copyright lapsing on certain big brands in the US. US copyright lasts for 95 years, and that's been extended over the years as it's sort of other people have lobbied for it to be longer, but now it's finally run out on some fairly big brands. Mickey Mouse probably being the biggest one, the very first Mickey Mouse only from Steamboat Willie, as you're seeing, any of the characters in there, quite frankly, but it's also things like Peter Pan, the very first Winnie the Pooh, MC Escher, some fairly big songs as well are also now out of copyright. So you can use them in your content as much as you want. Now, the thing you can't do is anything trademark related. So they are still trademarked. So you cannot open a Mickey Mouse's fish and chip shop because the Mickey Mouse is still trademarked. But there you go. We'll see how this goes. Obviously, as time goes on, more and more things will come out of copyright. You cannot use Goofy, for instance, because Goofy didn't actually appear until a few movies later. But when it does, Goofy is available, and so on and so forth. So we'll see how that one goes. Very interesting. I didn't want to like this one, but I kind of do. This is a physical keyboard for your iPhone called Clicks for iPhone. And the reason I didn't want to like it was like, well, it's a BlackBerry, right? But it has two kind of interesting benefits as far as I can see. One is it gets rid of that on-screen keyboard, gives you more screen real estate. But also, I think the most interesting thing is you'll notice there's a command key or an Apple key on a keyboard. So you can do key control shortcuts. So you Command C, Command V for control paste, control copy, that sort of thing. So I think that would be quite useful, quite interesting. $139 early bird I think deals are available. This is kind of interesting, very interesting really. This is a paradigm shift really in computing. We hear these things with quantum computing. We've been trying to do this with graphene for a while, but graphene has lacked the ability to be a semiconductor. It's what's called a band gap. So you can't force it to be a conductor and then not a conductor. It needs a band gap to do that, and it's never really had it until scientists at Georgia Tech, well done, have basically they bonded it to a different surface which has allowed it to do that. Now what this basically means is because graphene is a single layer of carbon, it has very good thermal properties, it doesn't heat up that much, and it's also 10 times has the fluidity, as it's called, of silicon. In other words, it has the 10 times the speed of silicon. So this might power us to the next level of microchips. It's the first time we've ever had a chip that actually functions, and it also uses the same manufacturing processes, broadly speaking, as current chips. So that's going to be really interesting. So watch that space. Energy news. This is quite interesting. If you've been watching the news, you'd have noticed there's some volcanic stuff going on in Iceland, and there's actually a project called the Krafla Magma Testbed. This is allowing scientists to drill down into a magma lake, a magma pocket, to then use that for energy generation. So if we can do that, obviously there are many places around the world, in Africa and lots of places, that you can actually hit these magma pockets and therefore generate thermal energy, which is pretty much endless, limitless. So that is quite interesting. So the Krafla Magma Testbed is really like, as I've said here, the Large Hadron Collider experiment. It's allowing scientists not only to do it, but also to then figure out how we make this into viable power. If we can charge all of the world's batteries from magma and then ship them around the world, that's possibly a way of doing that as well. Google has started to disable tracking cookies. Now this is third-party cookies. So if, no, let's just go back a little bit. Obviously third-party cookies and Google have got a relatively rocky past. So this is how it's tracking you across the web and how it knows what you like, because it's basically listening to the websites you've been to. So now it has a thing called Privacy Sandbox. It's been rolling out for a while, and it has this Topics API. So if you're broadly speaking, you're looking at conservatories or cars, it will say, I will serve you adverts for conservatories or cars. I don't need to know who you are. I just know that you're into those sorts of things. So that's how they're getting around this sort of privacy issue. Now for first-party cookies, i.e. the website itself may be setting cookies when you log in, things you looked at last time, what colors you liked on the website, that sort of thing. Those are still available to the first-party providers, but this is all about third-party. So by the end of 2024, Google aimed to stop putting third-party cookies on Chrome browsers, and they started with the first 30 million users already. So you might start to see little pop-ups, and if they do, that's you. This is big news in the gaming world. Tetris has finally been broken after 34 years. So this is a Blue Scutty, and there's a brilliant video by A Gaming Scout. Definitely watch that. It's a long video, but it's a brilliant storytelling as well. It's basically, if you've ever thought that Tetris was just like squares falling down, well, there's a whole lot more to it than that. And it's just when you think it's been beaten, there's something else, or when it can't be beaten, there's something else to do as well. So what you're watching here, that little line that disappears there is the end of Tetris, the very last level, and there are no more levels because you've made it crash, and that's how you know it's the very last level. It's a really, really interesting story, trust me. And if you've not seen things like Trackmania or Mario speedrunning as well, please look those up because they are fascinating as well. Some great videos out there. But Tetris has finally been beaten. And there you go. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully it was interesting. If it was, I'll see you next week, and have a brilliant rest of 2024.